Yeah, so he's coming in there now.
Hi, John. How
Hi,
are you?
Micheál. How are things, Micheál?
Not
How
too
are
bad
things
at
in
all.
West Cork?
Not too bad. A bit breezy, but other than that, it's pretty dry.
Yeah, it's gone very cool here now after Saturday there, cooled down a lot. I think it's going to be like this for the week. So
Yeah,
and
at least
much
it's
to
good.
the
There's good utilization anyway, I suppose.
yeah, grays out are good, yeah. I suppose, Micheál, it's just before 8 o'clock. Maybe will we run through maybe what we might do for the next half an hour, or will we wait
Sh-
a couple of minutes?
we might wait just maybe for 1 minute there. There seems to be a good few people joining.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So if you have any questions about mid-season grazing management, I suppose what we mean by that is, grazing during the summertime. You know, write comment underneath there. We'll answer your questions over the next half an hour. And thanks again for watching and tuning in.
So you can kick things off, John, if you want, sure.
Yeah. So look, hello to everyone again who's tuned in. So this is new for Teagasc. This is our first Instagram live video that we've done, and I suppose myself and Micheál O'Leary have been nominated to go first. So yeah, John Douglas is my name. I work on the Grass 10 team within Teagasc, so some of you might know me from some of the grazing groups that I'm involved with. And I'm joined here by Micheál O'Leary, who works with Pasture Base Ireland, who runs Pasture Base, and I suppose Pasture Base is the grassland management tool for farmers, helping farmers grow more grass, make more money. So I suppose maybe give a bit of background to what Grass 10 is. Grass 10 is a campaign to promote grassland excellence, among family farms in Ireland. Um, we want to, I suppose, help family farms to make better grazing decisions. And why is that important? Well, I suppose from the research Teagasc has carried out, we see that every additional ton of dry matter or grass that we can grow on our farms, that we can get the animals to eat, puts more money into our pockets, into the pockets of farmers, and it's more sustainable because we're not importing feed into the country. So we want to support farmers on their journey to growing more grass, grazing more grass, and earning more money. So that's our mantra in Grass 10 really, is to grow more, graze more, and earn more. So the goals of Grass 10 is to utilize 10 tons of dry matter of grass per hectare and achieve 10 grazings per paddock. And that's done on 6 key pillars of soil fertility, grazing infrastructure, grassland management, grazing management, grass measuring, reseeding, and also sustainability. And we have sponsors on the Grass 10 team. We've Grassland Agro, AIB, FBD, the Irish Farmers Journal, and the Department of Agriculture. So without them, we wouldn't be able to run things like this. So thanks very much for your support. So I'll let you maybe introduce yourself, Micheál, and what Pasture Base is about.
Of course, John, thanks. My name is Micheál O'Leary. I'm responsible for Pasture Base Ireland, as John mentioned. Um, So I suppose Pasture Base Ireland is a grassland management tool used by dairy, beef and sheep farmers across the country. It's a Teagasc application. It was developed and I suppose ran by, or is currently run by Teagasc. And I suppose we have farmers up and down the country using it. And I suppose today is, I suppose, a good time, I suppose, to take stock at what's happening on farms at the moment. And I suppose the mid-season, it runs from mid-April to mid-August. Why pick the mid-season and why having a session on it tonight? I suppose if we look at the data coming from Pasture Base, roughly about 50 to 60% of the total dry matter production, grass dry matter production for a farm is grown during that period. So there's a period roughly of about 4 months. So I suppose they're the most important 4 months to get right from a grass point of view. And be it a dairy, beef or sheep farmer, we're all in the same boat. We're all well able to grow grass, so I suppose we need to get as much high quality grass into our animals, whether it's a ewe, a suckler cow, or a dairy cow. So I suppose that's why we've taken this evening to touch base with I suppose some management tips and I suppose the use of Pasture Base Ireland there as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to just type it in there to the box and leave it go out to us here, and we'll try then to come back with the answer as they appear here on the screen. And if we don't come to your answer, your question, We will be posting these anyway later on tonight and early tomorrow morning.
Yes, it'll be on the Teagasc Grass 10 account there tomorrow. If you look at the highlights, we'll put this up as a highlight story, so they should be there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I suppose the first question there, John, has come in. It's stocked at 4 coats per hectare. How low can I go on farm cover for the month of May by maintaining top quality grass? Do you want to have a cut off that one?
Yeah, so I suppose, look, we're trying to hold 10 to 12 days grass ahead of animals at this stage. So, it depends on what your animals are eating. So if you have a dairy cow, I presume because it's a cover per cow figure, it's probably a dairy farmer asked the question. We generally try to have 160 to 180 kilos of dry matter per cow ahead of the animals. So what this means is if a cow is eating, we'd say 16 kilos of grass, and there's 160 per cow on the farm, that's 10 days grass ahead. So the importance of that, I suppose, is we're trying to hold a 20-day rotation. As Micheál said, that we have a 4-month period where we're trying to fit in a grazing every 20 days. So we want to be sitting in the middle of the rotation. So if the rotation is 20 days, we want to be sitting at around 10 days ahead. So we have 10 days ahead of us, 10 days behind us. That makes up our rotation. If we go below this, we start to go into lower pre-grazing yields. So we're letting the animals graze lighter covers. And when we're doing that, we're not maximizing growth on the farm, and we can run out of grass that way. So generally 160 is sort of the lowest we'd be looking at for May time.
Yeah, and I suppose just on an average farm cover point of view, John, I suppose if you're stocked at 4 coats to the hectare, we're trying to target pre-grazing yield, so we want to turn the livestock into the paddock at a cover of 1400. And just a quick rule of thumb: if you divide the pre-grazing yield by 2, you'll get your average farm cover roughly. So somewhere around the 700 mark is where we would like our farm cover. And if you divide your 700 divided by 4, you'll get your cover per cow.
Yeah. We move on to the next question then, Micheál. Hi guys, is it a good time to spread lime, and what is the max grass cover you can spread lime? Look, there's no bad time to spread lime. I suppose the key things is that, if we're going around the farm in 20 days, it's to get that, have enough ground available to spread that, you're given, a couple of weeks coming back into grazing it again. So generally what we try and do is maybe spread it, if it's a silage field, spread it after the silage has been cut. So if it's a 2-cut system, after the second cut, or if it's just a 1-cut system, after the first cut, or either in the shoulders of the year when we are sort of on a slightly longer rotation. But there's no bad time. You can go anytime. That's the key, and it's the best fertilizer out there, because without the pH of the soil being right, the other fertilizer aren't as effective, as efficient. So what's the max grass cover you can spread lime? I presume that means what cover grass is on the field, Micheál. Is that how you take that up?
Probably, yeah. To be honest, Paddy, like John was saying, I suppose if the rotation is longer, it's a better opportunity to spread lime. So the spring or summer, when the spring or autumn, sorry, when the rotation is longer, and I suppose you have the weather as well to wash it in. At the moment, this week is going to be dry by the looks of things. Probably into next week is going to be dry. So if you are in a short rotation, it's just that bit difficult to spread lime at this time of the year. But definitely it is one thing, I suppose, that we Irish farmers are probably lagging behind in, and that's the optimum pH of their soils.
So soil fertility is, I think, the optimum size is only somewhere around 18 to 20% on most farms. So what we mean by that is the pH is in 6.2 to 6.5, and that the P index and the K index is index 3 and 4. So at that stage, then any fertilizer you apply is most efficient then at that stage. So we're wasting fertilizer but not having the soil fertility right, and we can't grow as much grass as normal. So there's another question in there from Doyle Butchers. So I would be the same for sheep. So I presume that's probably the cover per cow question, Micheál. So I'd say we're back to days ahead for dry stock. So because the cover per cow the cows counted as one livestock unit, where on, dry stock systems, it's different types of animals. So we just go with an overall days ahead figure. So again, it's 10 to 12 days ahead. If you want to grow the most grass, it's 10 to 12 days ahead. Now I know some dry stock farms might be slightly lighter stocked, so they might want to manage the grass more so than maybe maximize what they can grow, because they don't want the animals to eat it or whatever. So we're looking at, maybe if it's a slightly longer rotation length, of maybe 12 to 14 days ahead. So that might be a rotation length of maybe 25 days instead of 20 days.
Yeah, and just to touch on the pre-grazing yield in as well, you're talking about 7 to 9 centimeters of grass, of compressed sward height, in front of the sheep. Roughly of a cover, roughly, or in around 1,000, maybe 1,100. So it's slightly lower than, we'll say, for suckler cows or for dairy cows, or dry cattle, there for the sheep. Then I suppose if we just move on to the next question there, to keep spring calving suckler cows milking well, and to maintain good quality grass for their calves, what's the ideal pre-grazing cover? Is it lower than what's needed for dairy cows? John, do you want to go off that one?
Yeah, look, again, as Micheál said at the very start, while there might be different enterprises, grazing grass is the same thing, and the principles to management is the same, and the principles to getting the most out of it are the same. So grazing the right covers of grass, we're talking about grazing covers of around 1,400 kilos of dry matter. So I'm aware not everyone knows what that means. So that's around 9 to 10 centimeters of grass in terms of height. So if you got a compressed height of grass, or it's about 2 to 2.5 fistfuls of grass. So if you go out and get your 2 fists of grass, if there's a little bit sticking over the 2 fists, that's probably around the 1,400. Look, it's for anyone starting out. It's a bit of a guide, but it's not accurate as getting to learn how to measure grass. But that's ideal. So why is that ideal? So at that time, there's about the grass plant is at the 2.5 leaf stage. So it has 2 full leaves, and the third leaf is grown. So if we leave a run further onto that, the third leaf will fully grow, and we'll start the fourth leaf. And once the fourth leaf starts to grow, there's more stem in the grass sward. So the growing point of the grass actually rises, and there's more stem in the actual grass sward. And that first leaf dies as well. So we're lowering our utilization of grass then, as well as that. So we want to target those covers of 1,400 kilos of dry matter, or 2.5 fists. That's the way we'll grow, I suppose, the most grass. But it's the most quality grass. And at that stage, I suppose, you talk about the quality of grass, and how animals can perform off that. The more leaf, the more digestible. The more digestible, the more energy. The more energy, the more performance from the animal. So they'll get better clean outs, and the grass will grow back quick as well. So you're not going into big heavy covers that are hard to graze out. You're in there for days. That's just, you just need to be set up a little bit better to move them on a bit quicker, and be able to manage your surpluses a little bit better.
Yeah, so I suppose just to continue on that, I suppose just on a dry stock farm, I suppose it is important, I suppose, to have paddocks, and probably have paddocks the correct size, maybe for grazing, a group of stock in there for 3 days. So after the 3 days, you can move them on, and I suppose leaving the paddock in, giving it a rest period, in order for the grass plant to recover, and to apply your fertilizer, and you'll be back in there again in about 3 weeks' time at this time of the year. Just another question there from Andrew. How do you manage ungrazed grass around dung pads, in rotational grazing system? Yeah, that's a good question. I suppose it is can be a problem in high stock farms, I suppose, where you're allocating, where you have a lot of cows maybe on a small area of ground. I suppose the key thing there, Andrew, I suppose, is to get in at the right pre-grazing yield. And so if there was a lot of grass around the dung pads, perhaps hit that paddock maybe at a lower cover. We'll say if there was a cover maybe of 1,200 in it, so that they clip around, so the stock will clip around the dung pads, and remove any grass. And I suppose if it is exceptionally bad, I suppose, and if there was a surplus to arise on the farm, maybe next week or whenever, that paddock might be earmarked maybe to come out for silage at some stage. And I suppose the final one then probably is the topper or the mower, in order to, after grazing, just clean it off mechanically, And I suppose we'd probably try to manipulate our grazing skills, I suppose, in order to try to get them clipped down first. But then if all fails,
Yeah.
we'll have to go in there with the more.
Yeah. Yeah, so really the pre-grazing yield is the big one there, Micheál, and that 2.5 fists that I was talking about, that's the height we need to go in. Even if it goes 2 days past that, which might not seem like a whole lot, it can make a huge difference to cleaning out around those dung pads, especially from now on, as we'll see the grass going from vegetative state when there's a lot of leaf to that reproductive state, which is where we're trying to prevent. Around the dung pads can get very stemmy and heavy. So if we're grazing at the right heights continuously and grazing out well, we should be able to graze probably 2/3 of that grass around dung pads. But leaving it that extra couple of days, you might only be down to 1/3, and then that builds up every rotation after that. So yeah, so pre-grazing yield there is the thing.
Yeah,
So
sorry, John. Yeah.
yeah, no, are we going? We have a good few questions there to get through,
Yeah.
Micheál. I see there's so
We'll keep going. What UFL? A comment in here, a question in from Edward. What UFL is a cover of 1400? So UFLs, just for those of you who mightn't understand what UFLs is, I suppose it's a unit of energy, used in Ireland, a French system. So the UFL
it's the
value.
equivalent to 1 kilo of barley. The
Exactly.
same energy.
So yeah, one UFL. Yeah. So of 1 kilo of dry matter of grass is the same as 1 kilo of barley, which would be coming in at 1 UFL, Edward. And how many liters does a cover of 1400? So you're probably talking somewhere around 2.2 kilos of milk solids on a full grass diet. You should be on excellent quality grass. That should be sufficient.
And I suppose on that there, Micheál, a cover of 1400, if it wasn't grazed out that well the last time, it could have more stem in it.
Yeah.
So it mightn't be that 1 UFL. If on a cover of 1400 that's grazed out well and has good leaf from the base up, it will do that. It'll do over 2 kilos of milk solids under the right grazing conditions without any need for supplement yet.
Sure, yeah, and I suppose if you are that you can't forget about your minerals either. You're either putting in a kilo of meal to cover minerals, or you're putting it in the water. Next one here, pasture-based one. On pasture-based, there's a limit of 3,500 cover, which is in grass. Just wondering why this is necessary. I suppose, Dahi, the main reason for putting that one is that if there is a cover of 3.5 or 3,000 or greater than that, we'd be hoping that you would take that paddock out for silage, and I suppose to maintain quality in the sward, graze it down to the right residual, and I suppose get the performance from that grass. So I suppose we'd be hoping that no farmer would be grazing covers of 3,500. I suppose a maximum of 1,500 this time of the year. Marguerite Crowley in West Cork. A lot of us tell you about 20 units, spreading 20 units, but will this grow 16 ton for us? The short answer on that, Marguerite, I suppose, is we will be able to grow 16 ton. But we will have to use other methods of getting to the 16 ton, the likes of incorporating white clover into the pasture, and I suppose, as we touched on before, having our lime and our P's and K's optimum, and I suppose managing the grass in front of us, and I suppose taking the surpluses out, putting in the supplement maybe if when it is needed, and what else? I don't know, John, have you any other comment on that one?
Yeah, well, I suppose if you're going that consistently, or that's your 3-year average, if you like, you're probably at a stage there where you're, I don't know, there's probably very little limit to go much further, I suppose, on an average, for over 3 or 5 years. So I suppose when you get to that stage, you're probably looking at other ways of growing that, with maybe with less. So about being more efficient. So that whether that be with your low emission slurry spreading, or incorporating clover into swards, or spreading at the right amount at the right time with the right fertilizer, that sort of thing, to grow it. So if you look at a cover of 1,400 kilos of dry matter on a hectare, if we're putting on 20 units, that's about half of what the plant needs to grow that 1,400. So we're sort of taking that the soil is given the other 20 units. So I suppose on very dry soils with low organic matter, maybe if the allowance is there, maybe you could get a better response. But on a lot of soils that have, good levels or medium levels of organic matter, probably the response to adding more is marginal. So
Yeah, and I suppose there are commercial farms out there. I suppose it's fair to make the point that are growing a lot of grass, with a small amount or a reduced amount of nitrogen. And I suppose
yeah,
the grassland farmer of the year 2019 would be a good example of that. And I suppose
yeah,
the farm in Moore Park as well, which has clover.
yeah.
Next question there, I suppose, from Louise. I suppose thinking of reseeding. If I spray, how soon can I cut for silage? How soon after can I cut for silage?
So
So
receiving the paddock. So yeah. So I suppose what most people would do to spray off, I suppose, and maybe about a week later, they'd be going in and cutting that, and then at that stage, I suppose the it's gone down into the roots to spray, and that grass plant is dead, and you're ready again to go and put in your new grass seed. Are you any comment on that, Micheál?
yeah, I suppose there's two options. You can spray before cutting or you can spray after cutting. Some people like to spray before cutting, leave it roughly about a week after spraying it, but you'd want to check the product that you use, and you simply harvest the grass off the field, and you can come in then with your plough or your disc harrow or your one pass. And then, as John says, if you do cut the paddock for silage, just leave it a couple of days to green up, and then spray with your glycophosphate. I have 10 acres of strong paddocks, 3,500. I will be cut out of silage in the next 10 days. Should I cut now or should I put in the pit? John, do you want to have a go off that one?
Should I cut now, or put it into
Yeah,
the
or put
pit?
it in the pit in 10 days' time.
I suppose, look, it will probably depend on my stocking rate. If I'm sort of thinking if I have a very high stocking rate and I might want that ground back into rotation a bit quicker, 10 days could make all the difference, 10 more days of growing.
Mm.
Plus it would be that bit lighter too, so they would come back a little bit quicker. Should I put it into pit? Um, yeah, there's probably a bit more information we'd need there to answer that question fully. Um,
I suppose the situation we're in, John, some parts of the country may be suffering a little on drought.
mm,
If you had a few new fresh bales around the paddock, they might be handier later on to feed out if something happens, a weather event or whatever might
exactly,
happen.
exactly. I think it depends on your demand on your farm. If you have a very high demand, I'd be cutting it now. If I don't have a very high demand, I could be leaving it go with the silage in the pit.
Next question there, 4 acres for reseeding, 20 ton of lime. Good man. 3 paddocks and more for bales. Should I apply lime to these? Because 20 ton, that'd be, yeah, 5 ton. Yeah, definitely a great
Yeah,
opportunity to spread lime.
yeah.
And I suppose the recommendation there would be to go with 2.5, maybe 3 ton to the acre. Again, depending on your soil test results, but definitely a good time to apply lime.
Yeah. I suppose just if you're going to put slurry on those paddocks, put the slurry on first, maybe. If you can leave 4 or 5 days, then at least before you put the lime on, if you're going with slurry, or else get slurry back on those paddocks that are taken out for surplus bales. Get slurry back on them at some stage, maybe later in the year either.
Next
Uh,
question there, on fertilizer. What kind of fertilizer should he be putting out after baling up those paddocks, Jan?
oh, that's basically what I was getting to there, I
I
suppose. Yeah,
suppose you mentioned slurry already.
yeah. So I suppose for every 4 bales an acre, it's around 1,000 gallons of slurry. So if you're getting 4 bales an acre and it's watery slurry, I'd be looking at probably around 1,500 gallons of slurry just to replace the P and K taken off it. And that needs to go out, I suppose, sooner rather than later. But if your indexes are 3 or 4, you'd probably get away with holding off to later on in the year. If things are gone too dry now. But if you're not going slurry at all, I suppose you could go with maybe a bag or bag and a half of 18,612 or something like that. Micheál, what would you think?
Yeah, definitely. You've hit the nail on the head there. Probably, if the weather was, we'll say, softer, I'd probably go with slurry, using trailing shoulders or um, the 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 other type, the less application. Um, and then I suppose go to compound. As you say, you have to replace what you take off. Next question there again, just talking about when will the pre-grazing yield be up to 1400 after cutting bales of a
Yeah,
cover of 3000. You're probably talking over 3 weeks for that to come back again, depending on where you are and
yeah.
the growing the
I
growth
suppose
of your
if
farm.
you take an average paddock, Micheál, that's all we can take as an average paddock. You know, at that level, you're probably looking at 25 days anyway, I'd say.
Yeah,
Look, if it's a great site fertility and it's a reseeded paddock, it might be back in, in less, but I'd say on average it's probably going to be 25 days anyway. Maybe, and if it's gone dry, maybe even longer. So,
yeah, you're definitely over the 3 weeks there anyway. Next question is about measurement. Would measuring with a plate meter a couple of paddocks every week, if time doesn't allow to have a full farm walk, would get the average growth, would be accurate enough to complete the grass wedge. I think it would probably give you an indication of the growth rate on the farm, but it wouldn't be accurate enough to generate a grass wedge for the whole farm. If time is a limiting factor on the farm, possibly there is commercial companies who can come in and to measure your farm for you on a weekly basis or on a fortnightly
yeah,
basis, and I suppose you have full control over that. And it is a good service. It's like a guy coming in spreading fertilizer or spreading slurry for you,
mm,
and they come in, get the job done, and you have a report there. So that might be something that you might look into, Jack.
yeah. Or I suppose even in that case, is there a job, Jack, that maybe you are doing that maybe could be given to someone else to do and that you concentrate on getting even that extra half hour or whatever it is, an hour to go and walk the rest of the farm.
Yeah,
So,
and Jerry Roach is in there. He has his own silage outfit. Heard of people cutting strong paddocks and their own gear and make you a small pit of instead of bale it. Yeah, Paddy, or Jerry, that's a fair comment. Bales can be expensive. If you have your own gear and if you have a small pit, which would be suitable to put in a small amount of good quality silage, definitely, you can put it in the pit. And I suppose it'll be there for you to feed out whenever you need.
we have a mini drought in July. What's your opinion in managing this? So look, there's a lot of talk there last week of places going dry, and I suppose especially on the East Coast there where we usually get something. There's been a lot of talk of it, but like as I've seen from many of the groups that I'm involved with, the grazing groups, I just had a look at their growth rates there today, and the average growth rate across 9 groups there, say take the eastern half of the country, was 69. Certain counties like Meath was 55. It was the lowest, and that's where I heard probably the most reports of places going dry. So what you do in that scenario then is obviously you need to be out still walking the farm. You need to monitor the growth rate. So it'll all depend on what your growth rate has dropped to. Um, so in terms of managing, so you need to hold a 20-day rotation at least. When you see growth to start to slow down, so hold the 20-day rotation. So reduce demand. So what influences your demand on the farm? It's the number of animals you have, and it's the area you have. So can you reduce the number of animals or reduce what they're eating? So for an example, maybe autumn suckler cows. Autumn calving suckler cows, can they be dried off a bit earlier and, restrict what they're eating, that sort of thing? Or same with dairy cows, can we restrict some animal? So that'll lower what they're eating and decrease our demand. Can we increase the area? So could we move a group of cattle off to an outblock and give your home block a bigger area to graze? That would lower your demand also. Maybe there's ground closed for silage that doesn't have that heavy of cover on it, maybe covers of even 2,000 or maybe 2,500 that could be grazed, that was earmarked for silage ground. I suppose if you're doing that, make sure and try and mix and match the grazing ground with the silage ground, just from the high nitrates point of view, just to balance it out. And then you're increasing supplement in the diet, maybe as well. So, for dairy cows, if you're stocked at 4, increasing by 2 kilos will reduce your demand by 8, because 4 times 2 is 8. So it might go from 64 back to 56. And so you might go up to 5 or 6 kilos a meal, in the parlour, or maybe at that stage you'll be looking at supplementing with high quality silage bales that are made maybe last year, or maybe made this year, earlier this year or something like that, and they could be fed either in the shed at the feed barrier or out in field along by the wire. Um, so I probably covered a lot in that question, but I'm sort of aware maybe we might get a couple of more like that, Micheál. So I sort of covered everything there.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose keep up the measurements, see what's going on the
Yeah,
farm,
keep walking the farm. Yeah,
monitor your growth rates, and if there is some bit of a deficit coming, that I suppose you hit it hard, the first time, rather than letting the problem get worse, I suppose. Edward is back to us again. What are your views on pre-mowing a paddock? Um,
yeah. So
I, s-
pre-mow in a
I
paddock. Yeah, it's
I suppose
I suppose
you're
it's like what you were talking about the dung pads there, Micheál. Like when things get too hairy on you and get away on you, and you haven't been able to manage the quality earlier on. Maybe it's one way of getting things back on track if you don't have that much of a surplus to take out the bales. But like really, I know of a couple of farms last year that were using pre-mowing for every paddock ahead for a whole rotation to get the quality back in. But like, you're talking about pre-mowing covers of, somewhere between maybe 17 and 100 and 2,000. So, going back to how the grass plant grows, there's a lot of stem in those swards. So you're forcing your cows to eat a lot of stem. So really it comes back to the pre-grazing height and getting them things right, from the start. But, saying that, if there's one or two paddocks that you didn't get grazed out well, or they're gone a bit hairy later on in the summer, pre-mowing is probably a way of getting, I suppose, them to clean out a paddock. I suppose do it when it's dry, not when it's wet. You don't want a mess. So.
Question in from another farmer here. Few covers 17, 1800, cover per cows of 190, but the demand is higher than your growth rate. Would it be better to graze them rather than bale them? Because maybe you have to feed. So just to explain this one here, so the demand is higher than the growth rate. So we would expect that the farm cover is going to drop next week. So I suppose at 190, you're just above the target of between 160 and 180. I suppose it's all depending on the quality of those paddocks. Should be okay. I suppose we're only the 11th of May today. The quality should be okay. So you might be as well to go and to graze one of them, but again, you would probably want to kind of think ahead. Have you got much rain over the last few days? Is your fertilizer up to date? And what do you think you're going to grow next week? Do you think your growth rate is going to be lower than your demand again? But I'd say you kind of have a window now, because as John was talking there about the vegetative and the reproductive state, the most grass plants haven't gone to the reproductive state yet, but which will be arising in the next week to 10 days. So I'd say you are just in time to graze those paddocks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably the projected wedge and pasture base, Micheál. There's one to look to, like to see, if you think the growth is dropping and what your farm might look like next week. You could see that you will be back in the sort of the 170 range maybe or something next week.
Sure, yeah. So after putting your covers into pasture base, you'll generate the grass wedge, and you'll get your average farm cover, your cover per livestock unit, your demand, your growth rate, your days ahead. And then there on the top of the screen, there's a green button called Projected Wedge, and you can click into that there, and it will use your current growth rate, and it will project ahead 7 days. So you can change the growth rate there. You can increase it or decrease it. And as John says there, it will calculate your predicted cover per livestock unit, or your predicted days ahead for you. And that's available as well on the PBI offline app. So we'd recommend any users of Pasture Base to download that app as well.
Yeah. So sorry, Edward must have finished the question up above there. Also, it's a lighter cover that's gone stemmy. Yeah, sure. Look, I suppose if you don't have surpluses there and the cover has gone stemmy, it is a management tool that's there just to fix one or two paddocks. Yeah.
One for you there, John, from Killian.
No,
John, at what stage can you let cattle in to graze?
I think we'll skip that one.
It must be a friend of yours.
Yeah, some of my friends in Leitrim there, great grassland managers up there in Leitrim. Yeah.
Thanks.
Uh,
When the conditions become dry, maybe putting heavy covers in silage. Yeah, that's
we've more or less covered that yet. So
yeah,
I
just
suppose if there's probably what would you say, Micheál? They probably want to be 2,500. You wouldn't really want to be going much heavier than that, would you? Like I'd just be questioning the graze outs of those fields. Look, if you can get a good graze out, maybe try one grazing within those paddocks. You're going to have to strip graze them anyway. See if you're getting a good graze out. Maybe try and graze them. If not, um, I don't know. I think pre-mown will become sort of a non-runner of them heavy covers too. Like, there's a lot of trampling in and stuff like that. So you might be better off just baling them and feeding back
yeah.
silage, and that's
I
it.
suppose cattle are they're selective grazers, so by letting them into a paddock, they're going to eat the nice grass first, and then they're going to eat the not so nice stuff. So the pre-mowing just eliminates that, but you are forcing them to eat, I suppose, poor quality feed.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a knock-on effect in on performance and growth rates as well. So I suppose we're just coming up there to 8:30. I suppose we'll take a few more, John.
Yeah. Yeah. So reseeded ground. We might try and answer a few of these quickly, maybe. Probably
Yeah,
nice. But problem with sods someplace because cows picked at them. Any advice? Um,
the lime should
yeah.
help in breaking down the sods. You would see it happening all right in certain cases where there was a very thick sod. And after disking it, and maybe you crossed it a couple of times and went different directions, and it still wasn't broken down. But give it time, that'll break that. That should be fine.
Yeah, and I suppose, look, I wouldn't be too worried with the old sods, and unless maybe like if they're greening up. But even if they are greening up, like if you feed the new sward, feed the new grass coming along, give it, as Micheál says, give it time, and it will take over anyway. So not too worried. Does docks come back in the field through the slurry? No, that they're already in the ground. The docks are already in the ground. They won't really come back through the slurry. They probably wouldn't be able to withstand the if it's going through the silage making process and in the slurry for that length of time. Each dock plant can sort of seed 60,000 seeds a year. So most likely it's coming back up through the ground already.
Is,
Any difference
i-
between actions?
i-
Sorry, Micheál, yeah.
is there any harm in spreading sulfur in dry weather? That's a very good question, and I suppose we forgot to mention it at the start as well. The importance of sulfur. So sulfur is should be spread, yeah, definitely in the summertime, and especially in lighter soils.
Yeah.
We'd be recommending probably about 12 to 1. So 12 units for every 12 units of nitrogen that you would spread 1 unit of sulfur. So for a typical dairy farmer, you're probably going to spread about 20 units. So there's plenty of products there with plus 4 and 5% S. There's protected urea, probably would be the most common type there available now. And the next question there's some
There's one
paddocks
just
with
above
not.
that there on
Yeah,
plating a paddock with weeds in it. I suppose, look, at this time of year, if you haven't got the weeds, got rid of the weeds, they're probably, a lot larger than the grass. So, you're just going to avoid them, I suppose, and try and get rid of them maybe at some stage. It's probably maybe even gone a bit late for getting rid of weeds, and especially when you're on a quick grazing rotation and things like that. So maybe try a different time of the year. Right, what else? You have the dairy
there's
fair, you've had.
there's another one there about clover, that you use a lot of clover in some paddocks and less in others, and how do you calculate dry matter in those paddocks? The dry matter percentage, I suppose, we can see from the working Clonakilty and the cuts that come back. They have an odd grass sward and they have grass clover sward. And in general, the clover sward is about 1.5% less dry matter than the grass. So it's just slightly less,
Yeah,
1 to 1.5%. So in the overall grand scheme of things, it's a small difference.
yeah. So the next one, dry matter is very hard to measure and can make a huge difference on farm cover. Can this be done easily anyway on farm? Look, so generally, like grass growing in these rotations, the 20 days, you're looking at 16% dry matter. In times like this, when it hasn't rained in a while in some areas, it's gone up as high as was there's 20% dry matter. In areas where it's gone wet, it's back down maybe 13, 14%. So look, if you if your highest cover on the farm is 1400, or you used, a dry matter if you're 1% out, or even 2% out on a cover of 1400, you're not going to be hugely off. It's going to be the difference maybe between 1400 and maybe 1550 or 1400 and 1250. So you're still in that range that you should be grazing it. If it's getting above that, like if it's over 16 or 1700, no matter if you use the higher or lower dry matter, it's gone too strong. It should be taken out anyway. So that's what I have to say. That one there, yeah.
Question for John. Finishing beef cattle graze or Teagasc is tight. If that
Right.
while the cutting silage going strong. Is that a sign that we should stop?
Yeah. Yeah, look, sure, like all animals should be grazed now tight. Only for this COVID-19, I'd be grazed tight on the head as well. So they should be grazed tight, to have quality for next time round, definitely, yeah. So Islami's going to try as much pine cutting silage and paddocks going strong if the grass isn't going to come back fast. Look, again, it depends how much grass is on those paddocks. If they have a good cover on them, those big heavy covers underneath the ground do hold a lot of moisture. They haven't dried out as much, so you'd be surprised there could be more moisture in them than some of the paddocks that have been grazed the whole time. So they, yeah. Sorry, Micheál.
And I suppose, John, if we just go back to the Grass 10 campaign, I suppose what the fundamental parts of that is, and I suppose could you describe your role within the Grass 10 and I suppose the area that you're serving and the farmers that you're serving. Just I suppose before we wrap up here, we just might give a small bit of information to the listeners.
Yeah. So I had to do a bit of a list there because we cover so much different things in Grass 10. I had to do a bit of a list because I'd forget something. But most of our time is spent doing grazing courses. So I think there's around 43 run around the country across Ireland. But there's two other people, Fergus Bogue and John Maher in Grass 10. So between the three of us, we run those grazing courses. They're a mix of dairy and dry stock courses where we meet out on farm, usually the same farmer. We walk the farm, we measure a bit of grass, we train our eyes, we get the farm cover, we make a decision around grazing and fertilizer. And it's a great way for like-minded farmers to learn about grassland management. And the farmers seem to like it. And so even with the restrictions that we have currently, we still are doing Zoom calls and our conference calls and keeping contact through WhatsApps and putting up the group reports and things like that. We also make a lot of videos there. Fergus Bogue on the Grass 10 team is the video expert, and we put out a lot of key messages from that and trying to showcase, excellent grassland farmers through the videos. We have the Grassland Farmer of the Year competition, which you spoke about, and that's sort of portraying the excellent grassland farmers, how they're growing a lot of grass, how the animals are performing well through that. And we usually run open days for them, and obviously this year we haven't been able to do that, but we did do a Twitter takeover, an Instagram takeover with some of those, and maybe later on this year, who knows, we might get to do something with an open day with them. So what else? Yeah, we've gone big on the social media side of things as well. Sure, look, we're doing this Instagram live video for the first time. We're on Twitter. Micheál, yourself, we're on Twitter. And between us as well, we have a Facebook group that we wouldn't mind anyone joining there. It's the Teagasc Grass 10 Pasture Base Ireland Facebook group. Sorry for the long title. But look, it's all like-minded farmers that want to grow more, graze more, and earn more. So that's the most of our the bulk of our work anyway, Micheál. So,
and I suppose it's important as well. I suppose that farmers have taken a good few price cuts in the last couple of weeks and the last couple of months, be it a dairy or beef or a sheep farmer. So I suppose it's important that we get use out of every inch of land that you are farming, and I suppose that every blade of grass goes into the animal at the right time.
yeah.
So just in, I suppose, John, on the Pasture Base Ireland side, like that, it's available to any Teagasc client. It's a web-based application, so you can access it on your mobile phone. We have an offline app there as well, and I suppose we have a dedicated help centre to help anyone to work through the different tools in the system. So I suppose we just touched on the projected wedge, on the grass wedge and the projected wedge, but you can also record your soil fertility or fertilizer records You have your spring and autumn rotation plan or different budgets, milk reports, etc. And we'd post up some information on Pasture Base
Yeah.
there later tonight or in the morning.
And the number of weekly covers going up, Micheál, and the number of farms recorded on pasture base this year, it's ahead of last year, is it?
Yeah, so at the moment, I suppose there's over 2,000 covers coming into us each week. I suppose we are in our peak week, so it's a bit like the grass growth curve or the milk curve. We're at peak at the moment, and roughly there's a growth rate there of about 70 kilos of dry matter across the country. So I suppose we're not seeing the effects of the drought yet that some farmers are experiencing.
Where are we to date this year in terms of how much have we grown compared to other years?
So on average, we're just looking through the figures there today. For any farmer that has recorded 10 covers or more in 2020, they've grown on average about 2.7 tonne. So those farmers would be projected to grow somewhere between 13 and 14 tonne if we have a typical year. And if we compare it to last year, we're running about 200 kilos behind in total dry matter production. And if we look at the 5-year average, it's about 100 kilos.
So we're more or less on target really with other years.
We're pretty much on target, but I think with the recent weather we're getting and the kind of peaks and troughs in we'll say in soil temperature, or not soil temperature, but in temperature, it is definitely worthwhile you taking maybe an hour or 2 hours per week just to walk your farm to see what's going on and to plan ahead. To plan ahead for the coming days.
Yeah.
So I suppose then, John, just to sum up, I suppose.
So I suppose the summary, the big thing is for every day for the rest of the summer, really, which is from now until maybe the 10th of August, around that time, is to graze those covers, right covers every day. So them covers are 1,400 kilos of dry matter, 9 to 10 centimeters. I would say 2 to 2.5 fists of grass. That's what we want to graze every day, and that's why we need to be walking the farm. So walk the farm to make sure that we are grazing them every day. So so the best way of doing that, I suppose, is holding your 20-day rotation, so your 18 to 21 days. So we'll just average out a 20-day rotation and keep 10 to 12 days grass ahead of your animals, or 160 to 180 kilos per cow. So we want to be sitting dead center of that rotation. And yeah, as you say, Micheál, if we're stocking rate of 4 at that sort of level, we're talking about a farm cover of 600 to 700, and then if we double it, your pre-grazing yield is 1,400. So that's where the management all fits in. And as you say, monitor your growth rates on a weekly basis. Identify any surpluses that might be arising. Identify any deficits. Use your pasture base and your projected wedge to better anticipate them, and then act. The big thing is to act, I suppose. Take out that paddock on time. Slow them down on time if you have to, or whatever it is. Just make the decision and use pasture base.
Yeah, and as you said, take out surpluses quickly. Apply your nitrogen. Don't forget about your sulfur or your P's and K's if you're taking off the surplus silage. If your P's and K's are low on a particular paddock, maybe use slurry as well. And I suppose myself and Jan would probably like to challenge everyone that is listening to us here, of 3 grazing rotations over the next 60 days. Yeah.
So today is the 11th of May. So we're talking about the 11th of June, July. So the 11th of July, we're supposed we want 3 more rotations of the farm by that stage. So most people are probably in sort of 2.5 rotations at the minute. So you should be up on 5.5 rotations by the middle of July.
Yeah, so it's 3 rotations at 1,400 of a pre-grazing yield. So you're somewhere around 4 tons of grass grown over the next 60 days.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. So I suppose we'll wrap it up there, Micheál. Now, look, sorry, there's lots of questions that we didn't get to. As our first time, we weren't too sure how many questions were going to come in, or we're going to get any questions. But thanks very much for interacting with us and asking questions. We'll put them up, any ones we didn't get to answer. We'll put the answers on the story tomorrow. So follow the page. We'll save this as a highlight. And if you'd like to follow us on Twitter, the Teagasc Grass 10 team, and follow Micheál on Twitter
at Pasture Base Ireland.
At Pasture Base Ireland.
And I suppose there is the takeover on Wednesday with Nicky Byrne and Donald Fahey, who are working in Teagasc Grange. And they will be taking over the Grass 10 Twitter page and
Yeah, so it's a
the
behind the
Teagasc
scenes
Instagram
look.
page.
Yeah, a behind the scenes look at what's going on in Teagasc Grange at the Calf to Beef program. See how the animals are performing there, and see how they manage grass on that system. So, what the benefits of that sort of system can bring to a farm. Yeah.
And
So
I suppose finally, I suppose we're coming into, I suppose, the middle of May, and I suppose silage season is quickly approaching. And I suppose just a word on safety. I suppose that it is a busy time on farms. A lot of big machinery
yeah,
in yards and fields and roads, and a lot of
yeah,
bulls in yards as well. And I suppose there is more children and more people around than usual because of the COVID-19. So I suppose stay safe, and I suppose hopefully that we'll have another one of these sessions later on in the summer.
yeah. Thank you, everyone.
So thanks for your participation. Thanks.
Thank you.